We're back for the next installment of Interstellar Chats. This is Carlene Saelg, and with me are our co-hosts, Kristin Anderson and James. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad that you're here. And today's topic is all about entities. How exciting, because there are so many different entities. And Kristin, why don't you jump in and tell us, because you just rattled them off right before we got on, we pressed record. So I'm like, why don't you just go ahead and take it and tell us about entities and how there are so many different kinds and where they might come from, how we might experience them. Like, just give us an excerpt of entities.
Okay, so we were just talking a minute ago about orbs. So orbs are like little round balls that you can sometimes, it almost looks like a fleck of dust, but it's not a fleck of dust. In your camera, you can sometimes take a picture of it. Those are a form of entities. The spirits that I saw at the gates of life, those are also entities. When I was a baby, this is kind of fun, my mom saw those same sort of soft white light beings at the end of my crib. She had she was scared to go in the room. She was fearful. And she actually didn't check on me after that because she was scared to go in there because she saw this white mass around where I was sleeping. So that's another form of entity. When we get those transmissions in our dreams that are definitely a communication from some sort of person or being, those are also entities. I mean, basically, we are all entities, right? Plants are entities, animals are entities. It's like an individual sort of life force. And it could be so many things, demons, angels, these are all entities. So as we're talking about entities today, it's just would be interesting to hear about all the different types maybe that you've experienced, benevolent or not.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's one thing that we should really make a distinction about, right? Because when we talk about entities, they could be extraterrestrial.
Yes, I was going to say aliens are entities. Like,
yeah.
But I feel like to us as a human, almost all other spiritual realm entities could be classified as alien.
Yeah.
True. In the truest form or the sense of the word, right? It's not of this planet, right? So it's on another dimension. And if we're seeing ghosts of someone who lived on this planet and has passed, yet they're still roaming around, that's an entity, right?
Yes.
So we have ghosts, we have extraterrestrials, we have all these different things that are, could be from another timeline, all these different things. It's that multidimensional experience that we keep talking about, getting to that place where it's not an extraordinary thing, but it's ordinary, right? It just is happening all the time at the snap of a finger, or we're always just there and we can access these different realms at any time. It seems bizarre and out of this world because we're having to float in between these different layers or these different levels of dimensions, right? So that's what makes it seem so foreign or extraterrestrial, right? And terrestrial, the word terrestrial really just means of this planet, of the earth, right?
Yeah.
At least I think.
There's some Latin for you people. Terra. Has anybody else studied Latin for 3 years and died over it? That's a rough one.
Nope, I have not.
Yeah, so that it's kind of interesting to think about all the different types that there could be and experiencing all the different types of entities is you start to realize like, whoa, there's a lot going on that we humans just don't know about. There's a lot, like, and especially the humans who have not yet woken up to this whole spiritual side of themselves, they're still asleep. There is so much going on all the time, and even just right in our vicinity right now, I'm sure there's like a host of other beings and entities just conglomerating around us, like lending an ear.
Right. And, for myself, I can give just a couple of really quick examples of entities that I've seen or I've experienced. And I might have even said this in a past episode, but I want to make sure that, our viewers know that this can happen at any time. And even if it happened in the past, you can draw on that experience and call it in to happen again for you if you like. It's all a matter, again, of using our intention and our intuition to call in the experiences that we want. And with the practice of meditation, you can get there so easily, right? So the very first time, I think, well, no, I can't even say the very first time. I'm just gonna, whatever memory I have of an entity that came to me, I remember distinctly waking up from being asleep. And this was not in the in-between stage, just literally waking up and seeing a woman and her child sitting on the floor against the wall beyond the foot of my bed, right? And I was like, okay, so how can I help you? What do you need? Do you want to tell me something? And literally she did not have anything to say or offer. I don't know if it was something she wanted to tell me or I was supposed to give her information. Literally don't know, but there was a young woman, I would say she was probably in her early 30s, and a child maybe around the age of 7 or 8, and just sitting against the wall. And I never did find out what they wanted. But they were there for a good long time. And I was just like, oh, do I go back to sleep and just leave them there? Like, I really didn't know what to do. So I was just like, okay, well, when you're ready and you want to tell me something, feel free to come back or wake me up and let me see how I can help you. Or if you have a message for me and you want to say it in a way that I can hear it, because I always want to say, for myself, maybe they're, again, at a different vibration. So maybe they are talking to me and I can't hear them, or I can't figure out the language. So I'm like, speak to me in a way that I can understand, or at the frequency that I can perceive it, so that I can make sure we're on the same level, right? So I do say those things just to make sure, but again, nothing happened. So she went away. And then, another time, again, when I had that experience with Jesus, when he updated and activated my healing abilities, and I had all those entities, those souls lined up out my door, and they were literally down the street for as far as my eye could see. And I just had these souls that I was working on energetically, healing them, and doing energy work and medicine and all that, energy medicine in the ethers, right, while I was asleep doing all this work. But those were all entities, and I don't know if they were all living in this lifetime, if they were in a past life, in a parallel lifetime. I have no idea. All I know is they were lined up waiting to have a session with me. So those are two that I specifically remember. But I always feel entities and people around me, and sometimes I just ignore it, I guess, because I'm getting on with my day. And I know that I feel things, or I know that something is there, and if it doesn't feel right, I'll move it along. And especially because I also do house blessings, and I do these cleansings for people for the energy in their home or their business. I will go to them, and actually did just about a month and a half ago remove an entity from a property, and she's so much more comfortable living there. And the interesting thing actually is, she's a single mom and has a kid who's about 8 or 9, something like that, maybe 10. And whenever this entity was bothersome was when the child wasn't there. So when the child went to go spend the day with their dad, the entity would be there bothering the mom.
Oh, wow.
Interesting, right? Like she would perceive it, or she would just be uncomfortable, and he would be making his presence known. And we know it was a male. And it took me probably, that whole session, it took me a little while to get him. Well, easily, by asking, I was able to remove him from the house. But when I went around the perimeter of the property to protect the property, he was still at the edge of the property, and I had to move him literally off the property.
Wow. That's interesting. What did you find out what he wanted, why he was there? Did you ask?
My sense, my intuition told me that he lived there.
Mhm.
And that it wasn't necessarily that he was being mean or he was being bothersome, but he didn't want to go. He didn't want to, he lived there. He wanted to stay there.
Yeah.
And I mean, who doesn't want to be by the water and,
Yeah, right. That reminds me of The Others. Did you guys see that movie?
Yeah.
When she
Yes.
wakes up and she realizes that she's the one who has passed.
Right.
She
But-
thought there were people in her house and they were just moving all her stuff, and it was really irritating to her until she had the revelation that she actually was the ghost.
Yes.
That was a crazy movie.
Yeah, that was a very good movie. I think that it seems like there's all different kinds of ways to look at entities, and it seems like some of them can be really scary, because I know when I was a kid, they would show like The Exorcist and demonic possession. It was really scary as a child, but now there's also beings that are of service, that are entities, and in many, there's sacred places that you can access these entities, and one of the places is in Brazil, and it's on one of the largest crystal deposits in Brazil, and there they channel entities, and I had the experience to get to be worked on by the entities of Abidjania, and what I had to do was there are herbs that are grown there on the grounds, and they've all been infused by those crystals, and they're passion flower. And so you get a prescription, you tell them what you'd like healed, and they'll give you a prescription. And so I was to take these passion flower capsules for a certain number of days, and then the day that I was worked on, I was to do nothing and just chill out. And it was interesting because I was at my art studio, and I was like, oh no, I realized that the time change, that I really needed to get home to lay down for my session. And I could tell, I just physically could feel a difference. I felt like I was buoyant in my steps when I was walking. And then, I got home, and the entities, during the time that I was allotted, I literally could feel my stomach being manipulated, something going on inside me. It was really crazy. And it was also interesting that that day I had ordered my vocal crystal, and it had came that day, and so I got to hold it during my session, and the whole time I saw triangles in my mind's eye. But I do know that I was worked on for sure, and so I don't know, do I feel like I had a particular healing? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if something healed me or not, but I do think that they were working on actually my digestive tract, is what it seemed like was going on.
So
It's
to back up for just a moment, Abadiânia is the place in Brazil where people pilgrimage to for these spiritual healings or these psychic healings or these energetic type healings or energy medicine type things. That is what you experienced without actually being there, correct?
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so awesome. Okay, so the reason I want to make sure that the viewers understand what we're talking about here, it's you were able to tap into this spiritual place where lots of miracles have said to have happened, where people experience miraculous healings. And this has been going on for generations, right? This is for a very long time. Now, to be very clear and upfront what we're talking about, this is a place where the spiritual leader or spiritual healer named John of God was working there. And if James, if you could explain to us a little more about who John of God is, because he had a fall from grace recently over the last several years. And if we can just hear a little bit about that, so we're not, so that we're, being very open and transparent to our viewers and what's going on.
Well, okay, so I think that they really need to divorce themselves from John of God. He just was literally a man who was capable of channeling the entities of Abadiânia, and he worked with them. And so, so he ended up being a service to self person instead of a service to other person, is how he turned out. And but the entities of Abadiânia are very real and are not a negative. And so there was a process to connect with them. And my process that I had to do was to take the passion flower, because it connected me to the Abadiânia and to the crystal there. And so then I was connected to the entities. So then I was able to work with them myself. So I'm open to them. And, I literally did feel my body being worked on during my time. I absolutely felt being worked on. So.
Yeah, and I want to also to just kind of bring up the term psychic surgery, which I've heard in the past, and think that it kind of goes together, right? Like it doesn't necessarily mean you were physically cut and had this operating room type experience, but you felt as though these entities from another dimension were physically working on your body and making changes within your physical body. So that could be considered psychic surgery.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I've heard in some of the Dr. Joe communities, when they do their healing circles, and one person gets the hot seat in the middle, and then they start their meditation in hopes of calling in these beings that do basically psychic surgery. But the bodies that are laying in the center, the person who's getting worked on, their body will move in sort of unhuman ways when they're getting worked on, which I think is kind of interesting. Yeah.
Wow. Has that stuff been recorded?
I would guess that, it is, but it's not on the table for public view for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I saw one of his where I guess they had a bunch of people, they did a retreat of some sort, and people were saying that they saw giants they were like spirits, but that they were big and that they were working on them.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. It's on my list of things to do, to go to one of his week-long retreats, just to be in a room with that many people doing that level of meditation. to raise their vibration to that level as like a group of a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 people. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Right? To be all on that same page. Can you imagine the energy in that room?
Yeah, I can actually. I can imagine.
Right?
I think
Yeah.
it'd be fantastic. And
It would be
how about if
amazing.
we all did that? Like, let's just say some point well, this actually does happen where people get together and have mass meditations, right? Where it's
Yes.
like hundreds of thousands of people will meditate at the same time
Yeah.
across the world, and we can literally shift things that are happening in the planet at that time, whether it's something that has to do with bringing in a peaceful situation or ending a war or changing a catastrophe of some kind or healing people.
For sure. I think
Wow.
there's that app. I think it's called Global Coherence. It might even just be a website, but you can log on and they give you every day throughout all the time zones. They sync it up and they say this hour we're all going to meditate around the world.
So that has to be hundreds of thousands of people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's global. I think it's really cool.
And that's how we're doing it. We're
That's how
making
we're
the
doing it.
shifts, right? We're making the shifts.
That's how we're doing it.
Fabulous.
I do have another entity story that I've noticed here lately. And both my cats have passed away recently, and I have was really lucky to get to feel my kitty jump up on the bed. I could literally feel my cat jump up on the bed. You
That's
know,
awesome.
and I guess I've had those experiences before too, where I've literally felt as if I could feel somebody sitting on the side of my bed next to me.
Mhm.
So
You know, actually, you just reminded me of something with sitting on the edge of the bed. When I lived by myself after college and I first moved to Texas, and I was, I had a couple people, my sister and my college roommate who moved down with me. And for a brief time, we were roommates together, and then they went their separate ways and I lived by myself. And when I lived by myself at that point, all these things just started happening, I guess, because I had more alone time, more time to be, retrospective and introspective and all these things. I kept having an entity wake me up by hitting the edge of the bed or walking past and like bumping the bed so that I would jolt awake. And I knew beyond a doubt that there was someone in the room waking me up, getting my attention.
oh, for sure.
That's pretty cool. I wonder why.
Mhm.
I wonder who it
Yeah,
was.
at this point, I was not very well versed in how to interact, how to find out information, how to use my discernment. It was all very still new to me. This was, like I said, right after college. Even when I was in college, there was around that same time in that same apartment where I had the experience of coming out of my body. There was also an entity. Remember, there was the dog that jumped over the bed into the bed, but there was also a woman who lived there in spirit form, who, when I was alone in the apartment, is the only time she would be active so that I could see her. Or maybe it was the only time I was truly paying attention to what was going on. But she would always walk past me in such a way that I could see her, and she would turn on the computer or she would do something that would like freak me the hell out. And I would be like, what is going on? Like, I would literally be like, that's it, I'm out of here. And I would pick up my stuff and go to my friend's house. I'm like, I'm out of here for the day. Like, it freaked me out that much. And that would happen quite frequently. And also, I can remember two different instances at college. One where I was in my car. Well, actually, both of these were a car experience. So I'm in my car and I'm driving just past the edge of campus, and there's a ravine and a little, just a little bridge, if you will, but just like a tiny little overpass, a ravine underneath. And as I'm approaching, I see someone, it's around dusk, and I see someone walking across the street, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that is so dangerous. So I slow down and I realize this is a man who's floating about 4 feet above the street, just floating across the street. And
Whoa.
I'm like, what? That is crazy. Absolutely crazy.
That
And
is
then
crazy.
again, at that time, all I knew was, first, holy shit, I saw a ghost. And what am I supposed to do? Like, just freaking me out because all these things are happening all at one time, like in a very short period of time. And before that, I've always had very gentle experiences in my childhood of, dealing with guides and animal spirits and just different things and coming, astral traveling and doing all these things. I never had to really deal with entities or spirits or ghosts or that kind of thing until I got to college.
Oh,
And it's just very strange. And this other time, I'm again in the car and I'm just outside of the campus property. And I look in my rear view mirror, or no. I'm driving forward and coming towards me on the side of the road. Now, this is a 2-lane road with not much of a shoulder. So typically people are not walking there and there's just like trees on either side. And I see somebody having like I was never in the band, but the band in school where they have the drummers that have the drum that is draped over their shoulder and they're just drumming, right?
Yeah.
So this person is walking down the street drumming. And I'm like, that's bizarre. Like, who walks down the side of the street where there's no shoulder drumming? And as I pass them, I look in my rear view mirror because I'm just shocked. And I look in my rear view mirror, there's nobody there. And then, of course, I look over my shoulder, there's nobody there. And I'm like, I know I saw that because not only did I see it, but it was long enough for me to say, that's bizarre. Why is somebody actually, it wasn't like a split second flashed in my mind kind of thing. It's real enough to have a cognitive reaction to what is that person doing that? That's so dangerous.
Yeah, that's just
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I've had many, many, many experiences with entities, but those were just some of the first ones that kind of freaked me out. And I want to bring that up because for our viewers, especially if you're just starting to have these kinds of experiences, they can be disconcerting. They can even be a little scary, but just know that sometimes we just have that ability to cross over dimensions and see what is not there in the 3D, but might be there in the 4D, 5D kind of, different dimensions. And it doesn't necessarily have to be something scary. And if it is scary, I want to make this point. If it is scary, send it love, send it your intention that it's not welcome here or that it's welcome to move on. And they will listen. They will listen to your instruction, especially if you are able to quell your own fear and really put that to rest and come from more of a place of observation and neutrality. You can basically guide the situation to be something that is not upsetting to your system and to your body. So I want to make that really clear that we can change how we feel and how we respond to have a better interaction with these entities. Makes sense?
Yes. Yeah, because in the end, you still have all the power with your word and your intention on this plane. In this realm, you do have all the power. So you just ask them to leave.
We do. I'm so glad you said that because it's all of that universal rule really of free will on this planet that the entities must listen to what you're requesting.
Yes. And it's like, I love this saying, what you allow is what will continue. And so many people who are plagued with, these sorts of disruptions, they're just allowing it to happen. They're not giving the entities any boundaries, and so they'll have their way with it. Of course they will, because, they want to play too.
Yeah, they think it's fun.
Yeah. What else are they going to do? They're not here. So they're having a good time. But that reminds me, your story, Carlene, reminds me of when I was in I mean, I have a number of stories too, but when I was on a road trip in Arizona, I was staying at a friend of mine's house and she was renovating it. And, she was like, oh, just, turn on the truck when you're there, make sure the engine's running and, turn on the water, the water mains over here, go fix that. And just make sure you turn everything off when you leave. And I was like, okay, fine. So I spent one night left. And the next day, I think it was the following week, she called me and she was like, you left the kitchen sink running. And I was like, no, there's no way. There's no way. I did not do that. And she was like, yeah, you did, because you also left the TV on in the bedroom. And I was like, no, because I don't do TVs in the bedroom. So it had a towel on it. It was covering the screen and I just left it there. She was like, no, there was no towel and the TV was on. And I was like, well, I don't know what happened. Maybe one of the workers came in. I don't know. So fast forward like another month and I used her place again. And I kept hearing like something rolling on the floor in the bedroom under the bed. It was like a penny or like a gumball kind of sound. And I got down on the floor and I'm looking and there's nothing. Like, all right, the TV is still off. I was really careful this time to I want to be very respectful. It's not my house, right? And she's letting me use it out of the grace of her heart. So I was very thankful. But that night I sat up with a friend of mine and we're sitting there and we're talking, probably very similar talk to this. Like we like to talk about, the spirituality stuff and we're just getting deep into it. And the hall light kind of flickered on and I saw a man walk down the hall. And I'm sitting there with my friend and I'm like, did you just see that? And he was like, a man just walked down the hall. I was like, oh my God, okay, so I'm not crazy. Like you saw this too. And he was like, yeah, that was crazy. And so we both, we run down the hall and we're looking around and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So I call my friend and I'm like, girl, do you know that you have a man living in here? And she was like, oh yeah, we call him Bob. I'm like, what? You could have warned me.
Right.
Here you are telling me about the water and the TV and it was Bob the whole time.
That's funny. That's funny.
It was pretty funny.
It could have been Bob.
It would have been Bob. But yeah, he was just kind of, it seemed like he lived there and possibly died there and he was just there.
Was never asked to leave.
Yeah, never asked to leave. And she wasn't going to ask him to leave. She didn't bother her. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm sure he's still there if you want to go visit.
Okay.
Well, again, it's how we react to the situation. So again, I want to make it clear that after I had many experiences and I talked to other people who were having experiences, because we're not alone in this. And for me, when I was having those experiences in college and right after college, I really truly felt like I was the only one that this was happening to. And that's not the case. So when we get out there and we come out of the closet, so to speak, with being able to see entities and being able to interact with entities and having things happen that are somewhat unexplainable, we start talking about this openly, we start to see that there are so many people, probably within our own families, who are having the exact same experiences and they don't know what to do with it, or they have chosen to shut it down, or just, this is not happening. I choose to never have this experience again. So they shut themselves off to that. And those of us who don't shut off to it have increased abilities to see and hear and interact with these entities. So again, I think it's very much more a commonplace thing than it is a rarity.
Yeah, that's true. And I also think you're right about people being scared and wanting to shut it down. I think my mom is one of those people for sure.
Mhm.
She is just very fearful. And the fact that she saw that entity around my crib when I was little, I don't remember how old I was. I was a baby. And she kind of chalks it up to, postpartum depression and just being so fearful that she just didn't check on me. Because she was afraid that she was going to do something. But she also said that she saw that light, that fuzzy white light, like some sort of entity around the crib.
Interesting.
So, and that is, that's the ability right there. But instead of commanding it and trying to understand it, she just chalked it up as evil and just blocked it out completely.
Right.
So that would be, the other option, just block it out. But that, I don't think that means that it's going to stop, because I feel like if you have that ability and you're not really commanding it and taking control and really using your free will to draw boundaries around yourself, concerning the other entities, then they still can have their way with you, because you're not in charge.
Well, that's the thing too, Kristin. I think that we automatically assume if we see or hear or interact with an entity that it's a dark entity, or that it's evil, or that it's not to be allowed around us, right? But
Yeah.
that's, again, the fear mongering that we've always been taught from the day we were born, that there's evil around us, or there's the devil, or there's, some kind of Satan thing, or if you let anything in that is not of this world, then you are allowing yourself to be taken over, or you're going to let evil spirits in, or you're going to be possessed, and it's going to be awful, and all these fear mongering type things. When for you, just you describing the entity that it was around your crib tells me 100% that it was a positive entity, that it was there to help and support you and to protect you and to give you guidance when your mom could not.
Right. Yeah.
So that was actually a positive thing and not an evil entity around her baby's crib.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree. And I think, the fear mongering is pretty crazy, but, again, that's all on purpose.
Mhm.
But I let go of this concept of good and evil. And it really allowed me to open up to just the reality of everything that is. There's not necessarily a good and evil, or the good side and the bad side, but there definitely are, self-serving and serving to others. So, if you have a self-serving being that's just wanting to take, that would be the evil. And a being that is there to support, that would be the good. But I don't think it's like this whole heaven and hell devil sort of thing. Unless, and the closest I can come to really understanding that whole heaven and hell vibe, and getting into satanic worship, would be where you have those entities that are self-serving, and then you have people who do have the ability to sort of see and communicate with beings, but they are not really in command of their vessel. So they've sort of been taken over by these self-serving beings. That would be the essence of evil, right?
Yeah. Either unknowingly allow it, or they choose it to happen. They tap in knowing that they want more of that power, control, evilness. But
yeah, I think there's probably, the whole array of that. There are the ones who don't really know what's happening and aren't really totally aware. They're just kind of going with it because this is what's happening. And then there are the ones who are in it and maybe don't want it, but feel like they're being forced to do it. And then there are the ones who really, they like the power play of it.
100%.
Because yeah, it does get into that for sure. But that's not real. The real power doesn't lie there. The real power does lie in one, having your own boundaries for yourself and your own self-protection, and putting your own needs first as your own spiritual entity. But then, using your personal overflow in the uplifting of others and the helping of others. It's just a more powerful position.
Well, it's just less judgmental to say service to others or service to self. You can, it doesn't seem like there's a negative judgment on someone's behavior. They're just simply either service to self or service to others.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. You're either self-serving or other serving. Yeah. And that removes sort of the good and evil.
Right. And it's
I
just
think that's a really, really important thing to talk about right now, is that when we talk about good and evil, or we talk about bad entities or dark entities, or the dark hats or the cabal, or whatever words we want to use to describe the group of entities that are self-serving or service to self, we also need to remember that it's not as important right now to be so protective, because those entities have been banished from our solar system. But there was a time where for eons we had to really be protective of ourselves, of our body, of our spirit, of all the things around us, because we were so susceptible. And now that these entities literally have been banished, we don't have to be so cognizant really of protecting myself and making sure that I'm closed off to other people's energy and all of these things where we're protect, because then we're also protecting ourselves and not allowing the good stuff in. So if we are now 2023, this is, July 6, 2023, where we are basically in this place where the bad entities have been banished, we can be a little more free with our protection, I guess, of just being able to experience other people's goodness without always being like, I gotta protect myself. There's bad stuff everywhere I turn. There's bad stuff.
I think maybe we could just look at it as just having healthy boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah, and healthy boundaries in the spiritual.
And if we can be more open from a place of love. What'd you say, Kristin?
Healthy boundaries in the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
Of course, yeah. And if we're always coming from that place of high heart, love vibration, positivity, then we will always be able to use our discernment and say, hey, I'm in a good place. I know I'm protected. I know my people are out and around me, and I don't have to be so cognizant of locking it down and allow more unity consciousness, Christ consciousness, where we come together as a collective and start to put that vibration out there more, so that it raises the whole planet, and all of humanity, and not just ourselves.
Absolutely. That's kind of where we're moving towards now that the darkness is gone, so to speak, right? That's kind of the new way. Now we get to expand. I'm seeing you guys as stuck. I see James, but not Carlene.
I don't
I think we have an unstable connection. I think it might have come out.
There we are.
Okay, there we are. Yeah, so what else? Do you have any other stories of entities or anything you want to share?
I just have that. I don't know if we talked about this on one of the other episodes, but going into the portal and seeing that other entity, that was more of a human person, but it was definitely like a portal, and you kind of put your face in there and could see. And there was another face that came in there and it said to me, there you are. And as soon as it said, there you are, it was like, there you are. And I went, and I woke up.
Wow.
And I was like,
That's
dang, why am I getting startled? Because when I get startled, when you get startled, that's when you wake up.
Yeah.
Oh, James,
Or
you used
pop
to
out
tell
of
me
it.
all the time how you just wish you wouldn't get startled or have a fear response, and that you just wanted to stay in it longer.
Yes.
But I do think that the asking does help, because the time that I did see the beings working on me, I went, I saw them and I went, huh, and I just kind of laid over, and then I looked again to see if they were still there. They were, and it just I think that's why it lasted as long as it did, is because I had I was just very neutral.
Yeah. So this again comes down to, even though you didn't necessarily have a practice with staying with it or not being reactive or whatever, each time you had a response in the past of having a fear response or a reactive response, you're like, I don't want to experience that. I want to be more in my body and in control and be neutral. That the next time it happened, maybe it didn't happen the next time, but the next time it did. Right. So
What I ask for is for my experience to be easy and effortless.
yes.
Easy and effortless. And if there's communication, let it be clear and accurate.
Awesome. So if we were to give advice to people who want to experience, this would be probably the top two things, right? To be, what did you say, James? What were the two things you just said?
Clear and accurate. And what did I say? Set intention.
Easy and effortless.
Easy and effortlessly.
Yeah, that's my mantra for anything that I want to bring to me. I ask for it to come easy and effortless.
I like that. I'm going to write that down, actually.
Yeah.
I'm just going to add that to my list of good things.
And so sometimes if I have I'm having a difficult conversation with someone, I ask for the words to come easy and effortlessly.
Yes.
And often it just flows, it just happens.
And I usually also say for the highest good of all involved.
Absolutely, every time without fail.
That's an important one.
Mhm.
And that would be the difference between a selfless and a selfish being.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That is always how we end, being in service to others. And then, sometimes I even add to seal the deal. I'm like, and so be it.
And so be it, for sure. So I have one more story of an entity, which is kind of interesting. And this could really be another episode all itself, but I'm not sure if we want to go into the realm of sex.
Whatever you want to talk about, let's do it.
So I was deep in it one day. I would say I was definitely in a stage where I was very, very clean. I was just drinking a lot of water, lots of fruits and vegetables. My body itself was very clean. My blood was clean. I was drinking a lot of water. And I was involved with somebody, and we had been having sex for a number of hours, but kind of in a very relaxed way, in a very tantric way. Like kind of doing it, kind of not, kind of halfway sleeping sometimes, maybe jumping in,
Just letting it flow.
Right. And we started to gear up again and got like involved a little more, like it started to rev up a little, right? And all of a sudden, my vision just shifted, and I was no longer looking at this person who I was having sex with, but I was looking at, and this is where the Minotaur comes in. It was like a man, but with the head of almost like a bull, and he had these horns, these massive curling horns. And I freaked out. I started shaking my head to like wake myself up, because I was like, what is this? This is not okay. I don't know who that is. We're just way too close for comfort. And I just started shaking my head, and it kind of went away. And this person who I was with, we both kind of stopped. And he looked at me and he was like, did you feel that? And I was like,
Interesting.
oh, I couldn't even speak.
What was his response? What did he say? Like, what did he feel? What was his point of view?
You know, I've tried to talk to him about it a couple times, but I don't think he's even processed that. But I don't think he didn't see what I saw.
Wow, he just felt it.
He felt something enough to stop and say, did you feel that? And of course I saw it, and I was like, whoa, okay, this is when I realized that people have attachments. I call them attachments that they may not know of. And this was many years ago, Carlene. So I know that you're saying these entities have left. So this would be one of those entities who was attached to this person. And I had gotten to, I don't know, gamma, right? Because that's what you have to hit before you start having these things. So I had dropped in and was able to see this attachment. And it just really freaked me out. I would definitely, if you Google demon, that's what you will see.
Wow.
And it really scared me to the point where that whole relationship crumbled pretty quickly. Because I was just like, I just can't. Oh, like, because I've seen what's going on with you. And actually, that's when I started really getting into self-protection and protecting my space. I became really, really good at protecting my space. I would go into every nook and cranny with the sage and saying all the things. And, you know, and over the course of the years of doing that, it got to be just a breath. I could just breathe it out. But now I feel like I don't even have to do that because I don't feel anything around. But that's just another story of an entity, and you know, a self-serving one, and also that they're not always like beautiful beings of light.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they can be really sort of grotesque looking and what we would call demonic. But I think in the end, that entity was, you know, an attachment sucking the energy of this person that I was with, you know. So the person that I was with was not getting his own energy. He was depleted always about everything. So that attachment was just really living off of him, like literally like a vampire.
Mm-hmm. And that what you just described there is similar to in a previous episode where we talked about out-of-body experiences, and this was not a sexual experiences, but the person that was next to me coming up out of her body and just reaching up, and I said it was this terrified look, and I couldn't really describe it, but it was an evil demonic kind of expression and feeling, and the entity was just very dark. It was very dark. And again, that relationship crumbled very quickly too. So yeah, it's weird when those types of things happen, when you can see the attachment or the entity that doesn't belong there.
Yeah, when you can see it, I mean, it's pretty intense. That was intense, obviously. One of the things that I started doing was having a sex magic circle. And most people are like, oh, it's sex, but it's actually, you know, it's really just your body's energy, because that's really what it is. Because the whole point of that, and in these sort of esoteric traditions is to have the knowledge and conversation of your holy guardian angel, right? So you're wanting to get in contact with the higher realms. Hopefully that's you.
Yes.
You want to get in touch with your higher self. That is your holy guardian angel. It's you. So you want to get in touch with your higher realms. So, but I wonder how many people have actually gotten that far into it where they were able to see the entity of somebody else.
Interesting to think about. We should ask
curious.
our audience.
Yes, if any of you have been privy to that sort of experience, I would love to hear about it. So
yes, please put it in the comments, reach out to us, email us. And we definitely want to hear all the stories. We want to know what's happening in your world. Like if you're having these experiences with entities, tell us about it. Let's get you on air as well. We want to have an interview here soon with someone and just join the conversation, because again, our whole goal with our podcast and our YouTube channel is to get as many people in this community to have conversation and open it up so that we all feel comfortable having multidimensional experiences. And when we're having these multidimensional experiences every day, whether it's in meditation, out of meditation, during sleep time, in that in-between state, whenever it's happening for us, it's an ordinary experience and not something scary or out of touch or just something we're not sure of or how to talk about. So we want to open that conversation to you. So audience, please tell us what is happening in your world. Put it in the comments, share this video with someone who may be having these experiences that you know of.
Yeah.
And please also like the channel, share it, do all those things that they say to do, but we never say.
Like, subscribe, click on your notifications, share it, tell your friends.
All those things.
All those things.
So for now, that's going to wrap it up for today. We will see you on the next episode of Interstellar Chats. See you next time.
Bye.